where business ideas and passions turn into profit. Napkin ideas are no longer tucked away in drawers, and women around the globe are turning their hobbies into million-dollar businesses. Welcome to Million Dollar Hobbies. Here's your host, world-renowned jewelry designer and Shop HQ celebrity, Victoria Wieck.
Welcome to another episode of the Million Dollar Hobbies. If you've always wanted to know what it takes to have your big dreams come true, and I hope you've got big, big dreams. In fact, if your dreams don't scare you, you're probably not big enough. I've got the perfect person who can walk you through that. Marnie Swedberg is known as the mentor to people with big dreams. And she's also the host, by the way, of a radio show called Transformations with Marnie and Friends. And you might want to take a listen there as well. Anyway, Marnie has amazing, years and years and years of experience, personal experience that actually will help you. Her experience, some of them are very fortunate and some of them are unfortunate, including fires, floods, tornadoes, car wrecks, business setbacks, burglaries, lightning strikes, you name it. She's been through all of that and more. And hopefully when you go through a lot of that, you end up with some amazing wisdom. And Marnie is here to share a lot of that with us so that we can be enlightened and inspired and ready to take action. So I'm so glad that she has chosen to spend some time with us this afternoon. And without further ado, I want to introduce you to Marnie. Welcome, Marnie, to the show.
Hey, Victoria, great to be here. Hi, everybody.
Yeah. So as I said, you've been through a lot in your life. You amazingly managed to look absolutely fantastic. So tell us a little bit for those of us who, those of my audience and myself who don't know everything about you, just a few things, just a little bit of a backstory about how you became the mentor and also how you became, the radio host and all that.
Yeah. So, everybody has their own story. I'm just going to pick a couple highlights from mine. I figured that I started mentoring younger people when I was about 11 years old, and I started teaching 4-year-old children's church, helping with that. Yeah. So I always say everybody's actually mentoring somebody. There's somebody looking at every life, and there's somebody that's a little behind you on the journey that you can help. They're watching you and you can help them move along. And I love your show, Victoria, because that's kind of what you're doing here. You're taking your expertise or the expertise of others and you're helping those that are just not quite that far along on the journey. So I feel like I've been a mentor almost my whole life. From the time I was young, I owned my first business when I was 18 years old, a fitness business. Went on, we've owned a restaurant and a retail store. I also currently own an online directory of Christian women speakers. That's the largest of its kind in the world. And so done a lot of things with business, but as a leader, then you're kind of put into this mentorship role automatically. You pretty much have to lead, or you just are going to be by yourself. If you have an entrepreneurship spirit, you're going to do it by yourself, or else you're going to become a good leader.
Well, Marnie, I think that's really interesting, because I think if you are, young, 10, 12, 14 years old, and you're mentoring kids who are younger than you, at that age, you have to think that you were not only a mentor, but you were a giver. Most people don't, when you're young teens, when you're, 8, 9 years old, you don't think, oh, I'm a mentor. No. Or I'm going to make money doing this. You just simply probably wanted to help somebody. When a little kid younger than you doesn't know how to do something or doesn't know how to process information or a situation, you're out there giving, basically trying to lift that person up. And I think we can today call that mentorship, but I would say that was probably the first clue that you are your generosity and you're a giver. So, and I say that now because I think to be an effective mentor, you do have to be generous. You do have to be a giver, and you also have to be an incredible listener. Wouldn't you say so? Wouldn't you think that those are all necessary ingredients of becoming an effective mentor?
Absolutely. And I took a training one time, and there's like 12 different ways that you can mentor somebody. And when I took the training, I had 11 of the 12 that were already in place in my life. And so I think for the listeners and I just want to encourage you that you've already got some real clear markers in your life of what you're supposed to be doing. For me, it was very clear from very young that I would be a mentor, that I would help other people achieve their big goals, their big dreams.
Yeah, I love that. And the other thing you said about your journey and the beginning, and I always love asking the origin, the genesis of. I'm always much more interested in why you do what you do rather than what you actually do, because what you actually do is really important. Yeah. But I think why you do what you do is, to me, more important, because that fuels the passion, that fuels the end result. So when you are, mentoring young kids at that age, like I said, that generosity, that the helping spirit and all that is there, and as well as leadership qualities. It takes somebody, especially at that age, it's very easy for kids to go, oh, so-and-so's got problems, and, it's his problem or her problem, or so-and-so's having a bad day or a bad week or a bad year. I'm just not going to play with that person. I'm going to play with these other people that are much more cool. Right. So I think that already told you at that point, or, people around you, that you had those leadership qualities, that you were generous spirit, and which will all come into play, a little bit later on in this show about what you actually do today with those skills. Because I'm sure with skills like that, with characters like that, or traits, they compound over time, especially when you go through, some of the obstacles you have gone through.
Right.
On your entrepreneurship journey, you mentioned that your first business was at a pretty young age, and you were involved in more than one type of business.
Yeah.
So that tells me that you are not afraid of, trying things, and that you didn't give up, right? Because most people try a business that doesn't work, and you're like, okay, entrepreneurship is not for me. I'm just going to go, work for somebody. I'm just not cut out for this. But you've done different types of things, even in the face of those things not working out properly. And then lastly, based on those decisions that you've made, you must have had incredible faith in yourself or in an external being, because how would you? I mean, that's my biggest problem. A lot of entrepreneurs that I end up mentoring or, helping out, they've given up, and, they come to me as a last resort, and it's really hard to change that mindset of someone who doesn't believe in herself anymore, who doubts every decision she makes. I mean, some of the decisions are so small that almost has no consequences, but they still doubt that. So, tell me a little bit about what it took you to start a business, fail at that, start a new one, fail at that, start another one.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that I failed at any of them. I would say that I moved to a different season in life. Definitely, some of them just were closed down, like the retail store, because retail, mom and pop retail in this age is like, we couldn't in good conscience actually sell that business. It's we ran it as far as we could. We were able to sell the building, clearance everything out and get funds out of it that way, but couldn't. But the restaurant, like, we sold the restaurant to other people, moved on. So when you're looking at it, though, I think that you have to be willing to just redefine success, redefine failure. So for me, success is just when I get in bed at night, I look up and I say to God, how are we? And he says, well done. And I go to sleep. Or some nights it's like a couple things to talk about here. Didn't go so well today. Success is just a daily thing for me. It's not something, one of the things that helped me with understanding success was being friends with a gal that's a gold medal Olympian. Well, watching her grow up, she was born 1 month apart from my oldest son, and watching her grow up and her whole life invested into hockey and into going for this gold medal, which she eventually got. And I'm not saying that it wasn't worth it for her to do that. That's who she was.
Her.
That's her. Right. But the challenge is that if all of our goals and dreams are way out there, like a gold medal, what happens is that we spend our whole life hoping to be a success. And then finally, the day we get the gold medal, if we get the gold medal, the moment we get it, we get up on the podium, woohoo, we're a success. And then what happens when we get off the podium? We have to start defending our title. So you either are trying to be a success, you're in the moment of success, or else you're a former success trying to stay successful.
Well, can I ask you a question though?
So it's no way to live, really.
Yeah, let me ask you a question, not to interrupt you, but in her case, if she didn't get the gold medal, but she got the silver medal, what happens to her? Yeah.
Well, the first time she went, she didn't get the silver. And that was hugely disappointing, but she got back up and she went again and she got the gold. Now I think my point here isn't that you shouldn't be going for the gold. I think we all have our own idea of what the gold medal is, right? But if that's what you're living for, is that thing way, way out in the future like that, it's no way to live, because you lose all your relationships, you lose everything. I liken it to putting a newspaper right in front of your face. So you're looking forward and you've got this newspaper in front of your face, completely blocking your view. All you can see is the newspaper. But if you fold the newspaper down, the newspaper is still right in front of your face, but now you can see everything to the right and to the left of it. And that's how goals should be, right dead center in front of your face, but not fully consuming you, because otherwise you give up your whole life chasing this thing that you may or may not ever actually achieve.
So you would argue then having goals that are very aspirational to you, and you have to reach for it, but not so far out that it's going to be all consuming.
Indefinitely.
Okay. Yeah. That's I think I completely agree with you on that.
And I use the analogy of a new baby. So you're going to have a baby. You're pregnant for a while. You have a new baby. The baby gets weaned. The baby starts toddling. The baby starts walking. Right. The baby's now old enough to, take care of itself. You don't stay in pregnancy and new baby forever. And if your goal, I know, right? They're wonderful, but honestly,
the two I had about killed me. So thank God.
I know. But if you stay in that stage with your hobby, with your business idea, with your ministry, whatever it is, if you stay in that pregnancy, new baby stage forever and ever, you're not getting sleep. Every thought is toward the care of this idea. Something's wrong. There has to come a point where you launch that baby, and so
and you gotta take care of the baby. You gotta take care of the baby, nurture
take care of that baby. That's absolutely right.
Now, let me ask you another question then. So, I'm trying to break this this information down so that people can apply it to their life today. So I get young millennials whose dreams are way too big for their abilities right now, and they have no idea how they're going to get there. But they're like, "Oh yeah, I'll find a way. I'll find it." Okay, they have no plan, no real business plan to follow, no framework, and yet they have very big dreams. And then you have people who actually won't set their dreams until they figure out what they can do.
Yeah, right. Both sides.
Yeah, exactly. You got the opposite extremes. So for those people that, how would you say, I completely agree with you, so far, because a lot of it, I wrote a book called $1 Million Hobbies. That's actually going to be released next year. And in my chapter 1, I talk about the importance of defining your dream that you could live with, that you actually have a really good chance of, accomplishing. Okay. So, and you have those checks and balances along the way so that you're not going, hey, I want to be, on the moon, 4 years from now, but you're still on Earth. You haven't gotten there yet. So how would you, is there a way to figure out if your dreams are like so way out of whack, or what do you tell people how you'd actually set your goals?
So I think that the dreams that you are actually equipped to reach are going to resonate with you. So I always say your body electric. Okay. If I take a brick and I stick it up against a live wire, nothing's going to happen. If I take you and I stick you up against a live wire, we're going to have sparks, right? Because you are body electric. And when God strung together your 3 billion base pair of DNA, you're it. There's nobody else just like you. And if you are thinking that you're a bicycle, but you're a Ferrari, no matter how hard you pedal, no matter how much you work, no matter how early you start or how late you go, you will never perform like what you were built to be.
Right.
So the Ferrari is going to be able to go faster and farther and have more fun. But if you don't know that that's what you're here for, then you're going to spend your time spinning your wheels. So I think that the main thing is to keep coming back to a place inside of yourself where you're at peace. Like, I keep having this thought and it doesn't go away. I had it when I was little. I had it when I was in high school. I had it when I was going to college for something else. I had it when I'm working now in this job. I keep having this one thought. That's because that's actually really important for you to pursue that dream that's really built right into your DNA. And I just believe that.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I would call that passion. I would call that, I guess, I'm an immigrant to this country, and my parents came from South Korea, and my grandmother was a very devout Buddhist, and I'm not sure. I was never like a real practicing Buddhist, but it seems to me like she believed in the idea of destiny. Mm-hmm. So, for example, people are born to accomplish certain things in life mm-hmm. while they're on Earth, and so they would call that destiny, what you just described. Mm-hmm. But I would call it the fire within you that refuses to die. And when you, and a lot of times, we think, for those people who don't have the confidence to pursue, or who have always been told, you're crazy and stupid because fire isn't going to make any money, or, whatever, like, why can't you be a doctor or a lawyer? Music, are you crazy? So, I'm just thinking that sometimes we are trained to think we have to live a certain life to be successful, or we have realities to face, such as paying your bills and, things like that. So we have to live the life we have to live in the meantime. So, I get that. I think that, the lesson here that you're trying to teach here is to kind of listen to your body, listen to your, the inside of you,
your heart
and your heart, and, and pursue, because would you believe that most of us are born with some fire inside of us that burn?
I really believe that. Okay. Well, if you hold up your thumb, just hold up your thumb and look at that thumbprint area there, that 1 inch. And just that 1 inch of you is so unique compared to the rest of the population on planet Earth. It can convict you in a court of law. So now you think, if my thumb is that unique, then how else could I possibly be unique compared to everybody else?
Right.
And so when we try to do a cookie cutter type of everybody needs to be this or that, it just doesn't work. But I think the beauty is that for me, I never thought that I would write a book. I couldn't even read until I was an adult. When I was going through school, I had to sound out the words the whole way through. And really, it was until I was out of school and out from under the pressure of needing to read that I learned how to read for fun. Then you couldn't stop me. Now I've written 13 books. So you don't always know that, like for me, being a mentor includes writing books. It includes having a mentorship program. It includes having a radio show. It includes going and speaking. It includes all these things. But did I have that passion? Not really. I really had this passion to somehow help somebody who's stuck at a certain level make it to the next level.
So getting back to that, I think that your passion actually was helping people. Absolutely. And still is. And in order for you to do that effectively, you've actually learned to reach people through books and through, through radio. Yeah. So I think I'm glad that we differentiate of the two. Now, for people who don't have, I know myself, when I first started my business, I had absolutely no money and no reason to think my business was going to be successful. I didn't have mentors. I wouldn't even speak English. We had no friends and family, and it's tough to actually make friends when you don't speak the language, and, you have to figure out what makes people tick at that age. But so would you say that having a profound faith it could be any religion or in anything, that plays a real big factor? Or do you think that that's secondary?
I don't think we can do a single thing without faith. I think that it takes courage and faith to get out of bed. It takes courage to get into a car, especially I remember right after a major accident, I could hardly do it. I could hardly get myself to get into the car because it's like, I'm too afraid that that person will come across the line and take my space, you know? Yeah. So you know how but a lot of that faith, because we've been doing it since we were little, we don't call it faith anymore.
Right.
We trust that when we sit on a chair, it's not going to crash to the ground. We just trust that. But actually it took faith. It took faith to reach over and turn that light switch on because you don't know if it's going to work.
It could blow up. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah,
so
it
really does.
True. Yeah, it's true.
But so when you have a new thing now you have a new idea that's coming around that you're going to try this new thing. Well, then you feel the fear acutely again as you develop a stronger faith to go forward.
So would you say then the fear and faith are actually at the opposite end of the spectrum then, like where you can overcome your fear if you have faith, but you don't have faith, so you have fear?
Yeah. So in the Bible, there's a verse that I say all the time because it's very clear. Perfect love casts out fear. There is no fear in love, in perfect love. So you think about that and you think, okay, wait a second now. What does that actually mean? It means that if you have the confidence, the faith to believe that something is really for you and not against you, you are free to do just about anything.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting too, because, without really understanding the biblical history of this, even though I am actually a practicing Christian, I'm guilty of not reading the Bible every day, which is which I think a lot of people don't do. But I always say that as long as your actions and what you say to people and the actions you take are in good faith and in love, meaning that you're doing out of the goodness of your heart and with great intentions, even when things don't work out right, that it will be okay. And that sometimes even like when you're writing an email, and somebody misinterprets it at the other end and they hate you for like 10 minutes or something, or they think you mean something else in different context. I still always say that as long as my heart, everything was from my heart and I was, being generous and being who I am, and I have no malice in me, that things will, pan out okay. So I think that you're basically essentially saying the very similar thing in that context.
Yeah. So there's two things that are coming to mind. One is the Brooklyn Bridge and one is Chris Tomlin. So Chris Tomlin is a musician who's written songs and sold millions and millions of records and music. So he said one time, living for approval is no way to live. And I totally agree with that. I mean, if that's going to be what you're going to mark your success by is what everybody else thinks about you, that's just no way to live. You'll drive yourself crazy.
And you won't succeed either.
You won't. And it really, the fear of hurting somebody or crushing. My first book that I wrote was a kitchen shortcut book. And I was so scared that people were going to mess up the recipes and blame me. It's like, so you can get scared about anything. You can get scared about anything. But the other one was, and I think it might've been the Golden Gate, but it was one of the big bridges that they were building. And the guys, this is way back in time, and the guys kept falling to their death because they were out over this big expanse and these guys kept dying. And the work was just moving at a snail's pace and they were never going to get it done. So what they did is they bought this big net to put under the men. And so that they could just go and they could work. Well, what happened is that the guys still fell, but they got caught. So they didn't die. So they were free then to actually just work really hard and they were able to get that bridge done. I feel like that's the difference between fear and faith. Fear is feeling like you're out on the edge of that precipice. And if you fall, you're going to die and the world's over. Whereas faith is saying, I very well may fall. But if I do, I'm just going to get up again.
Because you have a safety net.
There's a safety
you're going to
net.
fall into. Okay. That sounds really great. I think that most people that I mentor, and I've done a lot of that. And like since I was a little kid, I used to mentor a lot of people. I mean, first off, like when I first came to America, there weren't like a Korean community here. There were like 4 kids in our school that were Korean in Los Angeles. And I think that one of the oldest kids in our school, that Korean girl, she was about 2 years older than me. And she took me by her side and she kind of showed me the ropes a little bit. And then since then, I've mentored a lot of other Korean families that are coming in there. And, so I think you kind of do all those, but what I was going to say was that a lot of people that, come to me for business help, in the beginning, I used to think, I would help them I would help them with the digital marketing. I would help them position their brand. I would help them, come up with the product development portion of this, get them better manufacturers. What I found is that 90% of what I end up doing is the mental part. Yeah, right. Because they can't actually pick up, they don't have the confidence in things they do, or they might have, if I sit and talk to them for weeks at a time, they'll have confidence in one thing that they kind of learn to do a little bit, but then they still don't have confidence in their overall being. Right. So I think that this mental preparation or the mental health, I'm not saying anybody's mentally ill or anything like that, but it's almost like a brain exercise. And until you have a systematic way of building that confidence in everything you do, building that self-worth, having, like you said, having a safety net, that things are going to be okay, that all these other knowledge that I'm teaching doesn't have the maximum impact. So I think that a lot of the things that you're saying actually makes complete sense, meaning that, you define your goals. What you're trying to coach is that you have it teed up in such a way that they don't really have to fail. I mean, they could, when you're, what I mean?
Redefine it. Yeah. Yeah. So failure is feedback. That's all it is. And okay. So at the beginning of the program, you mentioned, okay, I've been in car wrecks and a sinking boat, lightning strike, burglaries, ambulance rides, surgeries, death in the family, cancer in the family. I mean, the list just goes on and on. So how do I not view all of this as the world ganging up on me?
Because you beat them all. I mean, I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, so far I'm here. But I think that it comes from a position of safety again, where I have faith to believe that everything that comes into my life, God can use for something good. And I love the analogy of the diving board. So if you go to the pool and you're going to jump off the diving board, you have kind of 2 choices. You can timidly walk to the end and step off, and that's one experience. Or you can go to the end and you can jump down and go up and jump down again and go up. And then you get a big, nice leap and a big bang when you hit the water. Yeah. So it's 2 very different experiences from the same diving board. So you've got 2 people and one of them says, I know I'm going to be okay. Right. So if I fail, that's just setting me up for a big win coming up here in a few minutes. Every time that you have a setback and you learn from it, you're actually ahead. Right. Of someone who never had a setback. I mean, one of the stories I love about you was how you responded. You guys lost, you had an order that was a couple $100,000. I had never had a setback as big as that one. When I heard that one, I was like, oh my gosh, because I've had some serious setbacks, but that one was like a financial. How did you even get your brain to work? How did you get past the fear to get your brain to come up with a solution? Because you did.
Yeah. I think, at that time, that incident was, it was a make or break. I mean, it was more than what I was making, bottom line, it was making more than what I made in the entire year. Right. And, the kid, he was my manager at the time and he should have known better, but he didn't. But, you think to yourself, it's really my fault because own it. I should have had a system. Yeah, right. I own it. I should have had a system that's foolproof. I thought it was pretty obvious, but he was a guy who never actually, wore jewelry. He didn't, so he kind of did his thing. So I think that my faith, that I had to, so my father, he wasn't really all that faithful person. Like he wasn't religious. And then when we landed in America, if you had asked him at that time, if he, what holidays he celebrates and stuff like that, he might have said he was a Buddhist because his parents actually were both dead by the time he was 12. So I didn't have any grandparents on my father's side. Korea went through a couple of wars. So, and all the young men were kind of drafted. So they both died by the time he was 12. And then the only reference he had actually was my grandmother on my mother's side. And she was a pretty devout Buddhist. So I think he might have identified himself as that, but we really didn't go to church. We went through like temples. They were like 6,000 years old. So you go there for the beauty of it. But when we landed in America and we ended up in East Los Angeles, which is a really rough area, he was scared, kids used to come to school with guns and, knives and stuff. So he was really scared. And he thought the best thing he could do was to drop us off at the church, which he had never known anything about. And there were 5 kids. So I had a couple of my siblings are Catholics. And I have one sibling who's a Buddhist, and then I'm a Presbyterian. So, basically that's how he kind of got his comfort that, this was safe. That was his safety net. But from that point forward, whenever something horrible happens to me, like in your case, you've got lightning, this is, fires and all that. When those things happen, I think to myself, like, okay, so where is the gift in this thing? Because,
right.
Where is the gift? Because, where's my gift? Like, because every one of these events actually, my father's not with us today, but if you asked him, like if he were alive and you were having to have a conversation with him, and if you asked him what's the best thing that ever happened to you other than, being married to your wife and kids, he would probably say the fact that he had everything taken away and he was left with only $30, that really was a blessing, because his dream was to bring his 5 children to America so that they could be whoever they wanted to be. And because we didn't have any money, he couldn't provide for anything for us. So we all had to get jobs pretty early, and we had to just kind of work and work. So today, all of my siblings, all 5 of his kids are extremely accomplished. They're all hyper educated. They're all, doing their thing. So I think that, I think what both Marnie and I are saying is that these obstacles come disguised as obstacles, as problems, as major setbacks, but they really are gifts if you choose to see it that way, if you choose to embrace it. So, that kid, I never had a terse word with him. I just basically told him, look, this was a huge mistake. And he felt so bad about it too. He really felt bad. And I said, this really, so what are we going to learn from this? And so that you don't ever have to make a mistake like this again. And no one else has to ever. And so not only are we going to fix this problem, but we're going to fix all problems that look like this.
Right.
So we fixed that problem for sure. But that's the first time, believe it or not, Marnie, that's the first time I realized I need a system. And then, so I came up with I looked for systems wherever I could actually apply systematically something to everything I did.
Right.
I had a checklist to everything we did. And so I think that actually contributed to growth the next year and the year. And, so that's how I was able to scale my business from, so small businesses, a lot of times you have, as your small businesses, where the founder is doing almost everything. And they're afraid to delegate because they don't have faith in their employees or their customers, and they don't have a system, so they don't have a safety net. So I think that's, I think there's a whole idea of explaining that safety net with the Golden Gate Bridge. I think that's a powerful story, actually.
Yeah, and I think the other analogy I want to bring in here is that you wouldn't expect a toddler to be able to drive a car. You wouldn't expect a third grader to be able to do quantum physics. You wouldn't expect a 16-year-old to be able to lead a country. There are stages and phases for everything. And if you're thinking you should be way farther down the track than you are, that's another really fast way to get discouraged. It's just you're gonna have to learn it. And like you say, especially in small businesses or in hobby businesses starting up, you're gonna have to learn it all and do it all. My son, my oldest son was just involved in a startup, and he had to learn every last thing. And now he's passed off every last thing, so at first you just have to learn it all, so if they're doing it right. So when there's a conversation about we could do this better, you have some kind of context to put that into. So all of even those beginning parts that everybody hates, even those, there's so much payoff to just investing the time in the education part.
Yeah. And I think, what we should have introduced you as should have been mentor to people with big dreams, but don't know how to get there. Because, you know what I mean? Because look, big dreams require lots of action.
They do.
And I'm not talking about one flashy action. It's a lot of little things.
Consistency,
Consistency is important. And I think that, what I say is like, okay, if you want to drive, if you're a 16-year-old kid and you got big dreams and you want to drive from Arizona to, let's say, New York, okay, you could walk there, obviously. You could drive. You could, basically get on a Greyhound bus. You could take the train. You could fly.
Right.
So, and you could, have all the detours. But I think what I say is like, let's say you chose to drive and you're driving from Arizona and you're driving around Grand Canyon, all that. And you're like, why didn't I do this before? And you get there, I lived right here in Arizona. I'd never seen this before. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
You get to New Mexico and you're like, this is wonderful. And then you get a little detour and you go, you know what? I wonder what it's like to go north. I've always lived in the South, so you end up going up to Wyoming. That's a detour that was completely unnecessary that set you back. Right. So I think having a framework, having some sort of a forward view as well as backward view. And I say this because you started out at the very beginning of this interview. You said that, there's somebody always who walked a few miles before you and some people who walked just a few steps behind you. Yeah. So those people that walked before you, even if they didn't succeed, even if they got off, if you can talk to them, they will still point out all the detours, all of the stuff that they experienced.
Or maybe why they got off. Yeah.
Yeah, why they got off, how they got off, and what were the beautiful parts of this, and what were the real ugly parts that you should watch out for. So I think that this mentorship is really important. I think the one thing, when I look back at my journey, and somebody asked me the other day, what would you ask your younger self? And the first thing that came up to my mind was I would have asked for help early on. I didn't know who I could have reached out to because we didn't know anybody, and I didn't know anybody in the jewelry business. None of my family members were entrepreneurs. My father was like a professor. Nobody and I'm talking generations of people. So, I didn't even know who to go to. So it was but I would say that today, today in this world of a lot of transparency, because you have the internet and everything else, that one of the first things I would have done was look for help from somebody who's gone before me. I mean, that's like a no-brainer. So, I commend you for being there as a mentor to a lot of people, because I think the other thing too is just like when we went over my mistake with making this, the $200,000-$300,000 order mistake. Sometimes, a mentor can not only, sometimes you get so specific, you're like, oh, if that person hasn't been in my business, they can't help me. But that's not actually true, because a lot of the principles of, turning a wheel actually applies to most automobiles. It's not just that one unique to that one thing.
Right.
So I would say that that's really great. In terms of, and I like your particular approach to mentorship because it actually allows the person, whoever is walking that path, to be themselves first. And then
that's the most important thing you can ever do is embrace who you are, because you're never going to be somebody else, no matter how hard you try.
No, you tell me. I'm kidding.
I know, right? No, but I honestly think that that's, I was thinking about, okay, if somebody asked me, what would I have told my younger self? I think I would have told my younger self, be yourself.
Yeah.
Be brave. Be yourself.
That's true. Have you seen the little thing? I saw like a plaque somewhere. It says, be yourself because everyone else is taken.
Yeah, right. All the other positions are taken.
Yeah, I love that.
Me too.
Marnie, this has been so inspiring. I want to ask you, as we come to a close, number one, I absolutely, Marnie has written 13 books. She hasn't written 1, 2, or 3, 13 different books. You know what that means, ladies? I mean, I've written only 2 and they're both being published now, but I know a lot of people in the publishing business. When you write 13 books, you have a following. People actually want to read what she has to say. So, go ahead and pick up one of her books and also listen to her radio show, which, transformation. I mean, can I tell you something? All of us out here, we went through, if you're my age, maybe I know a lot of you are younger than me, but those of you who are like in your 40s even, you went through decades and decades and decades of time when people, your parents, the companies, all of us paid for information. People who had information, information on the stock market, information on the data, information on, demographics. These people made money. A lot of people made money doing that. You know what? Most of us, a lot of that stuff today is free. Most of us do not pay for information anymore. What we pay for now is transformation. And I think Marnie has a whole show dedicated to transformation. And I love that. So, take a listen there. And Marnie, do you, if people want to continue on this conversation with you, where do they go? Where would you like them to go?
It's just my name, Marnie, MARNIE.com. And if you go there, you can find a bunch of free resources, including all the shows are there. They're divided into different categories for if you're an author or if you're a speaker or if you're a business owner or if you need marketing skills. It's all divided out there for you for free. And then there is a mentorship program and coaching available as well if you want to go a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I love that too. So, if you I love the fact that there's a lot of things that are free because that also shows you the generosity of that. I'm with you, Marnie. I don't charge for a lot of information that are downloadable. I like to share. So I love that you are offering that as well. And so thank you so much for coming here today. And I also want to thank my audience for being patient because this episode is a little long. I don't know if you know, we're in 39 minutes, which is a lot because we were trying to wrap this up in 25 minutes. So we had a lot to say. We had a lot of fun. But if you have not subscribed to the show, please go ahead and do so. And if you can share it with your friends so more people can enjoy these episodes and the wisdom from people like Marnie, I would appreciate it very much. And until next time, please stay healthy and happy. And remember, happiness is a choice. Thank you.
You've been listening to $1 Million Hobbies, where we turn dreams into reality and passion into profit. According to ancient Chinese proverb, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Congratulations on taking that first step today. For more information on how Victoria can help you turn your hobby into $1 million and to download Victoria's free ebook on passion-based business ideas, visit milliondollarhobbies.com. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast player.